Thank you very much. Now, immediately after lunch, I'm always conscious that I have the job of keeping you awake. So let's start with some basic questions, a little bit of a sense of who's in the room. Stand up if you're a developer who either develops at work or develops at home. Stand up. Come on, stand up. So sit down if you tend to develop with Java. Okay, a few of you, quite a few of you, all right. How about those who develop with JavaScript? If you sit down, if you haven't, you're with JavaScript. So what other languages are you using? Okay, Scala, cool, Kafka, fine. And sorry? Python, okay. And Python as well. All right, so okay, you guys can sit down. That's fine. Now it's just me that's standing. Now the reason I ask that is because we all have different ways of developing. We all have different ways of approaching what is effectively the same problem. And we have places that we're happy, but time moves on. Now, as mentioned, I am part of the development organization in Oracle, but I still like to get my hands dirty. And to give you an idea of my history, I spent something like 5 or 6 years developing critical systems. And in this particular case, using Spark and Ada, and then moved on into Java in later life. One of the reasons why I stopped doing critical systems, as I was advised by my then manager, was the quality of the code that I produced, and perhaps the lack of quality of that code. So naturally, when it comes to it, I know what I want. I even know what I like. But perhaps creating it myself is something I should stick to only at the weekend for my own purposes. But we all code in interesting times. Things are changing so rapidly. The new languages that we're beginning to hear about over the last 5 or 6 years, more and more, instead of core enterprise development with some of the common languages. The growth of the things like Scala, like Python, PHP, Node is enormous. And I guess the focus of this session today is partly to talk about what Oracle is doing in that space, but thinking about the theme that we have, being Jay on the beach. Those changes have driven us from building out a particular type of application on the left, or a style of building it, into a new way of building that out. And I'm sure you're all very familiar with these things. Everything from 12-factor apps through continuous delivery and zero delivery timescales. So we're not delivering every few months or years, but every day, every hour, often even more than that. And there's a challenge to doing that, and of course leading it with new technologies and new pieces, with the upsurge of machine learning and artificial intelligence. How do you, if you're like me, where you think, oh, that's interesting, and you start working, by the time that you've started looking at something and you've begun to get to grips with it, the new thing has come out. Now, I don't know about you, but faced with all of these things, and faced with the changes in the industry that Oracle as an organization and all of its employees have focused on, we see a new set of technologies, and that's something that we are investing in for a couple of reasons. One of them is that a lot of these technologies are becoming mainstream. And when they become mainstream, or even before they're becoming mainstream, there are benefits to being able to take the component parts that we have, and if we take, for example, the DevOps tooling, we can spend a long time putting those together in order to achieve our effect. But what if I could save that time? Because we can play with all this cool stuff, but when it comes to it, we need to find time. Time to be balancing work and life. Now that could be, I want to go home and see my husband. I want to go home and see my wife. I want to see my kids grow up instead of being in front of something building code. But because of the theme for today, we all want to be happy on the beach, right? We want to have time where we go, right, I've finished. Now I'm going to go and enjoy myself. Because it is about taking a balance, taking a joy in the new technology, in the new things, the excitement, but then stepping back and enjoying life as well. So with that in mind, thinking about how we might go about building an application, most of this session is not going to be PowerPoint. You'll be happy to hear. But if we think about our example application and what I'm going to show you, some of the pieces that we've brought together, what we're trying to do here, there's a basketball team in Oakland, in California, called the Golden State Warriors. And from their perspective, they want to bring their fans closer to them. And they have built out a way of engaging with those fans, to get them closer, to know more about them, and to be able to, frankly, just get the right tickets and the happy fans in place. And it is about the experience. And then, of course, on the right-hand side of this, one of the other requirements is to be able to engage quickly with those fans and give them a good experience. Make them feel special, kind of loyalty-oriented. And really, their approach has been not to just go build a monolithic chunk, but to be able to develop an app and effectively build it, deploy it early, so they haven't finished everything. They're just going to get it out there and see what the feedback is, and then refactor, refactor, refactor. And they've chosen to start this by doing an API-first approach, to take their fans from being a massive Warriors fan across to being a happy fan. And the component parts within here, as they build it, how do they get this stuff out quickly so they can start building, separate concerns, and continue the progress as much as they can? Well, number one is around design and delivery of APIs. Now, Jakub is our guy who's going to be doing API development, or the design and build out of that API. And then, strangely, my boss, Siddhartha, is going to be building out the microservices platform and the chatbot side as well. But the bringing together of all this is new technologies like chatbots. How can I leverage chatbots plus artificial intelligence plus a microservices approach plus the protection and documentation that comes around exposing APIs? Because this is something the Warriors are going to build, but they also plan to make these APIs available to a whole range of developers in their ecosystem who want to build out value-added apps or value-added bots on top of what they provide. So when we think about API first, right at the beginning, what am I trying to do? Well, I'm going to build something, and I kind of know what I want to build, but if we take it from the other direction and say, what do I need to show? What are the pieces that are going to make up this puzzle? Then API first is my lead area. And the reason API management is important is for fundamentally three core areas. One is to be able to do things more quickly and change more quickly. Not to wait for my friend to finish building his code before I can do the next thing. So I need essentially contract-based programming, although that's going to be defined at an API level, but also at a documentation level as well. Secondly, APIs are becoming more and more the core value of the customers that we see. The information that they expose, the APIs they expose, are more valuable to that company, perhaps, than certain investments that they have made in the past. It is the core of their business. And then, of course, at the bottom, we want to check on those assets, because if I've got pure gold sitting in the middle of a vault somewhere, and I'm letting little bits of it, people gain access to it, I want to check that I'm getting best value from it. So bearing all those things in mind, Oracle has taken an approach of covering the entire piece for APIs. API management at its basis level from thought through to implementation and protection. The life cycle of right the way through from design, through governance, security, and monetization, and off into analysis as well. And part of that strategy, some of you are probably aware, but last year we started an acquisition of Apiary, and Apiary itself has now moved into Oracle and is part and parcel of the whole API platform. One of the surprising things you might be aware, may not be aware of, is that the number of API developers who currently use Apiary is around 220,000. We are not stopping giving the free Apiary service away. It continues and will do perpetually. We recognize that in order to provide a modern service, it needs to be available to those people who want to use it, want to choose to take that on. So there is the ability to do all of the things that it says on the right: design our APIs, run mock tests, go through and pull together visibility and insight into the APIs I've built. And all of that is intended or is being delivered through a combination now of the strength of Apiary and the secure platform that Oracle's providing. Now, why am I telling you this? Well, when we think about how we work, we see two core parts. One of them, on the left-hand side in the Oracle Cloud, is the security and the policy setting part, and on the right-hand side, very much the design view. So our API designers will go through and they will use Apiary, as they do today. No difference. Same stuff as before. On top of that, API managers, having built out a set of mock APIs on the right, API managers on the left will be applying policies and exposing those APIs as mocks initially, and then eventually as true implementations out onto the internet or wherever you want them to be. So we set our policies at this point, and we push them out to consumers, whether they're on the internet or at home in your own organization, using a gateway. And that gateway effectively applies those policies against the services that are there. And what we do is simply this. The gateways can be where you want them, and they're going to be able to, or rather they do, ask for the latest policy set that they need to apply, and they get them back. Why do we do it this way? Well, we do it this way primarily because a lot of these are going to be behind firewalls, inside demilitarized zones, possibly green side in a lot of cases. Certainly if we're talking about APIs that we would use only internally. And of course, applications. The applications that are going to consume this stuff, make the requests right the way through to the back end, they're only ever going to go via that gateway. So wherever you put it, general best practice is going to be put it close to the services that you want to access or the implementations you want to access. But wherever you put it is basically where the applications will come through. Security is applied, and I will show you what I mean in a moment. But those gateways can go anywhere. It's not just Oracle. They can go on your premise. They can go in AWS. They can go in Azure. They can go anywhere that someone can stand up infrastructure as a service and be able to run a piece of compute. And then, of course, the final part of the puzzle is the API consumers themselves. If I'm going to consume this, I need to go find the APIs. I need to find the right ones by tags, by whatever description, so that I can choose to include those in my application. And over time, I can continue to get new, updated ideas. Now, that's great that I've got a set of mock services, and that's just saved me a load of time because I didn't have to build them myself. I can simply assemble them and expose them and start to use them as an application developer. So at this point, I've maybe got an extra 10, 15 minutes at home. Maybe I get home in time to see the kids go to sleep, or I just get an extra 10 minutes in the sun. But then when I'm in a microservice place where I'm going to start building out the implementation of those APIs and then refactor them, I'm not going to take the left-hand side approach, the big, heavy, stacked approach. We still support that. But moreover, we've introduced a set of modern tooling that's, again, intended to help and reduce the overhead of building out a microservice-based architecture, as we see on the right-hand side. The target here is really to make things a lot easier, to take the tools that you're already using, whether that's you're choosing to use Gradle or Vagrant or Packer or whatever it is that you currently use as part of your DevOps lifecycle. Combine that with a polyglot application environment so that it isn't just one or two groups of you who can build this stuff out, but you can choose the language you want to deploy in as well. And then marry that with a DevOps pipeline that either can be constructed from a set of pieces done by you, or alternatively, it can be something that you simply turn on and start to use. And it is entirely up to you which way that goes. All of this stuff that you've seen so far and everything that you will see in the rest of this is API enabled. Any click that you make or that I make during this process, you can replicate with a REST call or with a command line interface. So from that perspective, if you are comfortable with the build process that you have and you think, hang on, it would be kind of useful to be able to use that bit, you can. You can plug it straight in, either with a REST call or through a command line interface as you choose. That was very much focused on PaaS, Oracle's PaaS. We also, within the Developer Cloud Service, have the capability to deploy directly to containers as well. And one of the more recent announcements that we made at DockerCon three odd weeks ago is that we're acquiring a company called Worker. Is anybody familiar with Worker? Yeah? Okay. So Worker is a CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery tool that's available in the cloud, that has a developer following, and really focuses on deploying not just to a particular language container or a platform, but to Docker in general, and indeed out into a scheduled setup. So looking at that, bringing that in, the acquisition isn't complete yet, but when it is, we will have, as usual, our 100-day plan to bring that in as part of the available services that we offer. But also, we will continue to allow or to give the Worker environment away in the free format that it does today as well. And we can deploy to any container environment, ours, yours, on-premise, any other one that's available in the public cloud. So let's think about the bots. Bots are a new technology that has come up and really falls into a couple of spaces, but it's in response to what is broadly known as mobile phone app fatigue. How many of you have a mobile phone with more than 10 apps on it? Yeah. And what we find is that most people only use maybe 2 or 3 of them 80% of the time, but not for the rest. Bots are fundamentally focused around 2 areas, one of them being task-oriented, as it says. So would you like to subscribe to this? Yes. Therefore, I've subscribed for you. Or how would you like me to help on the right-hand side that are much more data-driven and predictive. And that's where we've found a use for machine learning to be introduced into that space as well. It breaks down into 4 spaces. Again, if you were to build this yourself, for sure you could go into the details of how you're going to, picking your AI engine, choosing your own model, working out your own natural language processor and sticking it all together. And that's fun. God knows, I've tried, and I eventually got to the point of I'm just going to use someone else's. Remember, my coding isn't fantastic. But starting at the top left, the ability to plug into pretty much any channel. Because if we're talking about bots, we're talking about messaging platforms, Slack, Facebook Messenger, WeChat, these kinds of platforms that vary in their ways of communicating back with a bot platform. So giving you the ability to just pick one because the integration's done. On the right-hand side at the top, the dialog flow. I'm going to have a conversation with you as a bot. So I need to have a flow in place that I can define or that you can define such that when that conversation happens, you at least have a plan as to where we're going. Introducing the AI engine built into that, partly for natural language processing, but also partly for the recognition and the pattern matching within natural language to be able to extract the right information, because each conversation that we have will call out to one of those APIs. And then on the bottom left, custom components, so that when we think about some of those platforms, for example, Facebook Messenger, it has a very specific set of custom components that you may choose to build out from and extend. So an SDK that allows you to do that as well. So let's do a quick experience of the fan bot. Okay, hopefully that tweet. This does look like a recording, and you'd think it was, except for the fact that that's you. So I'll take a picture. Yay. And we'll tweet that later. Got to do something. So the bot here is a Facebook Messenger bot. And thinking back to Jane, the big fan of the Warriors, in this particular case, I'm not Jane, I'm another fan. But I'm going to start out by, if we tap that one up, go hello, right, to start up my conversation. Oh, there we go. I'm Bob Jones. That's who I am. And I'm welcomed to the Golden State Warriors. And how might you assist me? Well, I think the thing here is I want to, when's the next game? Cool. All right, so it tells me then, and am I interested in tickets? Well, I'm not going to type yes because I'm lazy, so I'm just going to type yep. There you go. May they ask my ticket budget? Wow, gosh, this is quite intrusive, but let's have a go. 300. Based on my budget, we've got, oh right, okay, so we've got some spaces. We've got section, okay, the first one is $299, which seems fairly steep. Okay, yeah, let's pick that one, okay. So we'll pick the expensive one because I want to empty my wallet. I've chosen that, but actually, come to think of it, it's my wife's birthday next month, so I'm going to change that. So I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to pick that one, because it's the cheapest, and that means that I can afford to take her out for dinner. Yep, let's take that one. I'll confirm that. Yes, I have indeed. Yes, I am running short on cash. Right. Oh, that's nice. Well, as it turns out, because I'm a first-time bot user, they've decided that they're going to include me in a VIP room, and that includes free beer. Now, you remember I had the beer API as well? You go, okay. So do I want to stick with that price and add $50 to it? Well, that's going to depend on the kind of beer, I think. So what kind of beer do you have? Because clearly I'm not going to accept it if it's not my favorite beer. And I take a look, and sure enough, okay, it's Guinness is there. That's one of my favorites, it's got to be said. So I'm relatively happy with that. But looking at the others, yep, that looks like a reasonably good mixture, so I'm going to stick with that. Ooh, try and get in there, that's it. Go on to the order, yes. And hopefully it will come back with a, there you go. Fantastic. So do I want to generate my Apple Wallet pass? Yes, I do. Tap it in the end, and so I finish my experience. Now, bearing that in mind, the whole wandering through and doing that, the APIs that are behind doing that are clearly an important part of building out my application. And when we think about how we might do that in terms of the AI flow that comes with it, number one, we have the app itself, and of course, we can plug nicely back into the channel integration itself. And in that case, that could be Alexa. We obviously ask the questions, and we have natural language understanding of my somewhat perfunctory, what kind of beers do you have? But that was out of phase because I was actually buying tickets. So I was able to change context and come back in. Having gone through and identified my intent, I've pulled the right information out in terms of an entity so that I can gain information. I know that it's $300 is my limit. And then I'm going to go off to my back-end systems to go find out, well, what can I do with that? And then in the end, I can get a great deal that finishes that up. So it's relatively simple to go through and do all of that with the bot builder. So less of a build it out physically yourself with code and more assemble it and then extend it with your code. And really the purpose of this whole session has been coming down to it is making app dev easy with a combination of services you can just take and consume as part of your build. But it's not just pieces that we offer. There are a whole range of others up here as well. The AKKA or the akka.net platform being one of them, all drawn down for your use whenever you want to. And of course, it's where it needs to be as well. So summary of all this is from a modern application development perspective, if we're looking at getting some of our lives back, then it's easy, it's open, and it's right where you need it, whenever you need it. So it's easy to pick that up, to have a comprehensive environment that you can build from, not uniquely, but to be part of the process and part of the applications that you build. And it is a great way to use that cool stuff and just spend a great deal more time on the beach.